Hello, and welcome to Easy Does It, a show where Easy does it. And by does, I mean talks, and by it, I mean about sports from Chicago sports. So Easy Elijah talks about sport. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Um, wow, I got a lot I want to talk about today. Because as you could tell in the title, I'm a little mad at some of the people. I'm not going to name names in the mainstream media, mainstream sports media, that is. And I mean, I am going to name names, of course. Um, and the reason why, I decided, well, you know what? Before I get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl because that was a hell of a game. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm very happy to see Patrick Mahomes, get another ring. I know, there's a lot of Bears fans who are upset about it because it's like, I mean, I guess their logic is, well, we couldn't have Mahomes, and so now I can't root for him. I can't be happy to see him succeed. I think that's crazy because it's like I can't blame him. I'm not blaming him for not being drafted by the Bears. The only people that I could blame are um, Ryan Pace and was it John Fox at the time? I think John Fox was the coach at the time. That's crazy to think about. But yeah, I can't blame I don't blame Mahomes for not getting drafted by the Bears. And I don't take it personally anymore when he wins. Yeah, there was a little time when I was slightly resentful, but then I realized I was being a bit ridiculous. And now watching him win makes me very happy because he is first of all, I think he's just like a great role model. Like I think he's very easy to root for. He's fun to watch. He plays a style of football that's engaging to people that aren't necessarily football fans, and I think that's just really cool. Um, and moreover from that, I think he has a case for. Well, I already I recently released my on. I just put it on Facebook for the sake of having it out there. I put up my top 10 quarterbacks of all time, and he cracked the list. I think I absolutely think he is top three at this point, and that might be a crazy notion to some people, but I'm a little crazy, and that's okay. Um, the other side of the ball, I think like Mahomes, we've talked like he's going to be talked about a lot because he's pretty clearly the best player in football. I don't think anyone could question that. I also think Andy Reid coached a brilliant game, especially in the second half. He adjusted, and yeah, like you could say what you want about, oh, he's got Travis Kelsey. Yeah, that's true. He's got Travis Kelsey, great player. I want to talk about the other side real quick. I want to talk about the Eagles as we get some viewers trickling in. What's up, guys? We're up to um, a solid several viewers up in here. It's nice. I want to talk a little bit about the Eagles, um, and specifically, I want to talk about Jalen Hurts because the narrative surrounding Jalen Hurts going into the Super Bowl was that he's more of a runner. He's not a great thrower of the football. And he just like some people like to throw that archaic, oh, he doesn't process information well type thing. And, I think that's all silly. And when people say things like that, they're kind of telling on themselves. But he proved a lot of people wrong on Sunday. He played great. Um, we got some comments. Frank Marshall, what up, Frank? Big Frank the Tank. Not a hit on the Chiefs, but the NFL fed him that playoff. But Eagles lost that game regardless. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles, yeah, the Eagles lost that game as well as the Chiefs won it. I do think got to give credit where it's due. Um, but don't worry, I am going to talk about that penalty. I'll get there. But first, I want to talk about Jalen because Jalen Hurts. I just found it. I don't know if I qualify it as ironic or if it's just a coincidence. It's kind of ironic that the whole year he was touted as this quarterback, a running quarterback who can throw instead of a quarterback who can run. But in the Super Bowl, he was nearly flawless when it came to throwing the ball. He was slinging rock all over the field. His one problem. What up, Diab? How you doing, man? The link's in the chat if you want to hop on. You're welcome to. If not, you can just listen to me and kvetch at me later. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I just think it was pretty ironic that the whole year he was touted as this runner who can't throw, and then in the Super Bowl he goes out, starts slinging rock, making plays, dropping dimes, gorgeous touchdown pass to A.J. Brown. And the one mistake he made was on a design quarterback run when he fumbled and kicked the ball away. So, I mean, and look, I'm not saying I mean, he's still a great runner. You know, everyone makes mistakes. Tom Brady threw a pick six in the Super Bowl, and he won his first Super Bowl thanks to a pick six by Ty Law. But point I'm making, Jalen can sling it like that. That he is easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't think anyone could question it. And if there's any Eagle fan listening for whatever reason, don't feel discouraged about your team because, I mean, like, sure, feel how you want to feel, right? Like, you're allowed to be sad if you lose. But I do think the Eagles will hang around for a long time. And I think a lot of that is because of Jalen Hurts. He's an excellent player. And I've always been a supporter of him. You could go back and listen to Jew Point Conversion. I've always said, you know, Jalen Hurts, he can play. He can play. And the reason why he was such a late pick, he fell to the second round, is because he was more developmental coming out of college, among other things. I think he's proven everyone wrong. And even though the Eagles lost that game, Jalen Hurts absolutely proved that he's a winner capable of getting it done on the biggest stage. And his biggest crime was, as Michael Jordan said, and I'm not comparing anyone to Michael Jordan, but like Michael Jordan never lost the game. He just ran out of time. I always found that quote to be a little silly, but in this game, it was kind of true. He absolutely, he ran out of time. The Chiefs were able to get their way down the field, and by the time Jalen Hurts got the ball back, there were 8 seconds on the clock. There's nothing they could do. And yes, thanks, Diab. You're absolutely right about this. Or I should call you Coach Chef because that's your name on my show. Philly fully invested in development, defense, O-line, weapons, although most of it was already there. Yes, I agree. And I mean, you only work with what you got, right? And Hurts has done a great job, building chemistry with these very good receivers. Don't get me wrong, they're great. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are both number 1 receivers. So yes, like there is something to be said about the fact that he's got a great team, or a great team around him. I just think it was interesting that the narrative is, oh, he's a runner. And his biggest mistake of the game was running, and he was throwing it beautifully. Frank is saying, I would love to see what he could do with a minute and a half left, just to see what he would have been able to do at the end of the game there. Blessed clock management by Andy Reid I've ever seen. Yes, thanks for saying that, Coach. I completely agree. That is, I've never seen Andy Reid actually make the cock. Ooh, Freudian slip. My bad. Pause or whatever. No, I've never seen him work the clock that well at the end of the game. However, and Frank, don't worry, I'm acknowledging it. They did catch a break at the end of the game. There was a penalty called, as you all know, and I'm going to play it because I have it and I can. So if you're an Eagles fan, you might want to turn away for a little bit. But here's what happens towards the end of the game.
Mahomes, pressure, lofting one, end zone incomplete. Juju Smith-Schuster couldn't catch up. There's a flag at the 10. Hang on, there's a penalty.
Prior to the pass, holding, number 24, defense, 5-yard penalty, automatic.
Worst case scenario, you'll see James Bradbury, they're going to say he grabs him. He's got his left hand on his back. I don't know. Mike, listen.
Look, it's a weak call. It's not the wrong call. He was holding, and the reason I don't have as much of a problem with it as other people might is because Bradbury, first of all, he owned up to it. He admitted, yeah, I was holding him. I was hoping I'd get away with it. And secondly, he wasn't playing the ball. And on those wheel routes like that, when you see the receiver kind of break out, you're going to get called every time when you're looking at the receiver tugging the jersey. He was not playing the ball, and that's what's going to happen. Now, again, I hate seeing referees determine the game, and I'd much rather an egregious no call than a ticky-tacky penalty most of the time. But, yeah, I see, if I'm an Eagles fan, oh, man, I'd be pissed. And Eagles fans have every right to be pissed. Ticky-tack is a penalty. Hey, Anthony, welcome to the show, man. Always great to have you here. Yeah, BS call, ticky tack, but a penalty flag's a flag. We could debate that until the cows come home, right? And the cows never really do come home, by the way. They're going to market to be slaughtered. It sucks. Anyway, sorry, bad, dumb joke. Anyhow, yeah, no, it was definitely really like I see why Eagles fans would be pissed about it. And if that was the Bears, if that happened to the Bears, oh man, I still would not have slept. But if it happened to like the Packers, oh man, I would be delighted and I'd defend that call all day. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan and I'm biased. However, as someone who was truly neutral watching this game, I liked both teams. Um, I was, like I was able to look at it with a certain degree of objectivity, and I still think it was the correct call ultimately. Now that being said, I again, wherever you fall on that spectrum, it's not really like a black or white. Like that's the thing people don't realize about officiating is there's so much judgment. It's so many judgment calls go into these games. It's not like like the letter of the law is so ambiguous at this point that it's kind of hard to tell. It's as though the refs decided the game. Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, the refs kind of always decide the game because they're the ones calling it. But no, I do see your point, Anthony. Look, if I was rooting for the Eagles, I would have been pissed. If I bet on the Eagles, I would have been pissed. But at the same time, it, by the rule, it did make sense. However, my problem with it is certain people complaining about it. And Frank, I hope you're still here because you're going to love this, man. I'm going to rip into LeBron James for a second. Sorry, itchy nose. Sorry, mom. I respect the hell out of LeBron, but immediately after that play, he was like, how are you going to call a penalty like that? Like, how are you going to determine the outcome of this game on something so ticky-tacky? And I'm like, LeBron, you're saying this? You, of all people, are saying you can't decide a game on a penalty. Or, you can't call fouls late in the game. And this is like a week after that whole thing where Jason Tatum hit him in the arm going up and he, whined about it ad nauseum. He threw a temper tantrum on the court. And it's just like, it just felt a little out of place from LeBron. And at the same time, where was LeBron complaining when this happened in the Super Bowl last
On the left side, 3rd and goal. Stafford fires, knocked away. Flag thrown, though. Logan Wilson was there, and a flag comes in.
Holding. Defense, number 55. Penalty half the distance to the goal.
There. You tell me.
That's what they called.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I hate that. See, to me, that one bothers me more because Logan Wilson is over the middle and he's very clearly playing the ball. Still, I could see where they would have called it a hold, but it still looked to me like he was, playing the ball a little bit more. Also, the difference there is the Bengals are holding on to a lead late in the game as opposed to the Chiefs coming in to tie it. That being said, man, we just had 2 awesome Super Bowls. Like that's, props to that. Great freaking games, man. But yeah, I mean, like it was a, like you never want to see flags like this impact the game. And you never want to see a game end like that. Terrible, man. As you said, the refs are controlling him. Philly fans should be more mad. They had a 10-point lead in the second half. It couldn't stop the Chiefs. And they kept Mahomes under 300 yards passing. Yeah. And what's something I said on the last show, if anyone tuned in, I said, the Chiefs want to if they want to win, if they want a good shot at winning, Isaiah Pacheco has to have a big game. And sure enough, 15 carries, over 70 yards. He was excellent, making huge plays. That guy's a beast. He reminds me of Montgomery when he runs, except he's tougher almost. Not tougher. No one's like he's as tough, but he's like he's got a little more burst to his game from what I've seen. Either that or they don't stack boxes against him because it's Mahomes and, he's not the number one priority like Montgomery's been. But yeah, he definitely reminds me of Montgomery and how he plays. Really, really good running back. So shout out Isaiah Pacheco, Rutgers guy. But yeah, I guess, I don't want to talk too much about the refs because we just watched one of the most bitchin' Super Bowls of all time. We got a fun defensive touchdown. We got a lot of back and forth scoring. We got a comeback. And it's just a really fun game. And the Eagles and the Chiefs both gave us that. The Eagles and Chiefs gave us just a delightful game. And I respect the hell out of them for that. Now, the one thing, I will go back to the penalty real quick and this will kind of appease the people who are saying that it was a bullshit call to end the game. I think we're gonna transition, and pretty soon I'm gonna welcome my guest on the show. He's been waiting very patiently, but we're gonna transition into the first segment, which is one of the few segments I do on the show so far, and that is this one.
Calling them out.
So the reason why I like to pick on Colin Cowherd is because when I argue sports media, when I argue on social media or in person with people about sports, cigar lounge debates or whatever you want to call them, a lot of times the people I argue with are just reflecting the shit that Colin Cowherd says. And I know that because I listen to Colin because he influences a lot of people, and I want to know what he's saying. I want to know what they're saying. One thing Colin said is, if he defended the call, and that's fair. I'm defending the call too. He also said, what did he say? He said, if the Eagles, what did he say? Oh yeah, he said if the Eagles would have scored anyway. He said, the Chiefs would have scored anyway, even if they didn't call the penalty, they would have taken the lead anyway, so it didn't matter. And how? It's just to me, it's just so negligent to ignore the fact that 8 seconds is less time than a minute and 38 whatever seconds. Do you watch football, man? Do you not understand that the Eagles did not have a chance because of that penalty? And I'm not saying the penalty, this is not I'm not, regardless of whether it was the right call or not. How can you have so many listeners and viewers if you have takes like this that are just so willfully ignorant about the nuances of football? It doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, I'm an idiot. I'll fully admit it. I have some shit takes sometimes, but at least I can own up to it, and it's just this is not predicting something. This is something that already happened in the game. And it's a minute 38 is a lot of time. The Eagles definitely could have gone down and at least gotten a field goal, sent that game to overtime, or they could have gotten a touchdown and won the game. But the penalty stopped them from doing that. Whether or not the penalty was right doesn't matter for this conversation. It's just another example of Colin Cowherd and his writers kind of trying to shift the conversation to adhere to what they want. Another point I want to make in this, while we're still in this calling them out segment, is something he said about a certain play that the Eagles ran during that game. And for those of you, we all watched the Super Bowl. If y'all remember, there was a certain they ran this quarterback sneak where they have a couple of tight ends lined up behind the quarterback, and they push him forward, kind of like the Reggie Bush play at USC. They push him forward, and basically the Eagles got a first down every time except when they false started on that play, and that's just because they won the scrum. They had stronger guys than the Chiefs did. And Colin was going on about how this is a loophole in the game and how this is not real football and how this is just like how it's not in the spirit of the game. What the fuck are you talking about? It's not in the spirit of the game. The whole idea of football is gaining ground. You're trying to gain yards. You're trying to advance the ball forward. The quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. So, the play where you take the snap and you just push the pile forward, I can't think of anything that is more in the spirit of the game than that. That is so football. That is physical football. That is why we watch it. It's like a whole group of guys saying, exactly what play is coming, and you're not going to be able to stop it because we are stronger than you. That is why football is so beautiful, for plays like that. Like that, it's those little things that make the game. It's, it's the teamwork element. It's the element of, moving a grown ass man and physically moving him to a place where he doesn't want to go, and just saying like there's nothing you can do about it in the context of football, obviously. But it's just like it really bugs me that people are so against this play. And he kept saying it's ugly, it's just an ugly play. And I'm like, yeah, it's football. Football's like, since when is football supposed to be pretty? It's not like, just because Mahomes makes it look beautiful when he wins, it's like, that doesn't mean, like the roots of football aren't a little hideous. It's an ugly ass game. People are getting hurt all the time. It's a Spice Adams, frequent or a recurring guest on the Chicago Clubhouse Network, once said, he said that football is basically a series of car accidents, like small car accidents every play. It's not supposed to be pretty, Colin. And that really pissed me off. That pissed me off a lot. Man on man, no zone while running the ball. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Coach. But anyway, I just want to say that pissed me off. But the main reason why I'm doing this segment transitions into a lot of what I want to talk about on this show. And that is Justin Fields, the famed quarterback of the Chicago Bears. So Colin recently went on this rant saying that Bears fans need to put down our pom-poms because we need to move on from Fields. The Bears should trade Justin Fields, is what he's saying. He said Fields was bad in his first 2 seasons, and he referenced his numbers from both those seasons combined. 24 touchdown passes, 21 interceptions. What's his completion percentage? I'm finding it real quick. It is 59.7 total, although that number went up this year to about 60% and improved as the season went on. He said Fields was bad and that he hasn't progressed, which is obviously bullshit. Like, we all know that. And he said something along the lines of, when you lose 10 games in a row and get the number 1 pick, it's hard to say, let's run it back at quarterback. I feel like that just completely disregards a whole bunch of context. And he's talking about how in his second year, quarterbacks are supposed to make big leaps. But Fields' last games were bad. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 63% completion percentage. Again, Colin's words, not mine. And those are true. Those were his numbers in the last 5 games. But, let's compartmentalize that for a minute. And don't worry, Evan, I'm going to get you on in a minute. The reason why this is ridiculous is because, he looks at Fields' career numbers as a whole, but completely ignores that his numbers were substantially better year 2, right? So, yeah, he has 24 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. I'm not even looking at the rushing stats. I know he's got more rushing touchdowns than that, but and that matters. I don't know why we ignore that, but like his TD interception ratio, I don't know, like, everyone loves that stat. We salivate over that stat, and with good reason. Touchdowns and turnovers win or lose you games, but it was significantly better this season. He threw 11 picks this year, 17 touchdown passes, and I'm going to go back and I'll probably do a show where I look at every single one of his interceptions and just like kind of grade them. But I also remember 4 of those picks were in the first 3 weeks of the season. He started off a lot slower than we had hoped for. And that's a huge factor. You can't just ignore the fact that this season started slow for him and steadily improved, right? The Bears had a new system. Field started the season poorly and improved as the year went on. But in general, like after, like the Minnesota game, then the Washington game happened. Minnesota game, the offense picked it up as the game went on. Washington game happened. That was a shit show nightmare. Then the week after that is when the offense really started to pick up. They were scoring a lot of touchdowns. They're scoring, well over 20 points a game. I think we're at like 26, 27 points a game for a stretch. He uses PFF to judge the offensive lines, omitting the fact that oftentimes offensive lines look better because quarterbacks are able to elevate them by being evasive. And he's like, oh, the Giants offensive line's ranked 30th and the Bears offensive line is ranked 14th. Herpy, derpy, derpy. And it's like, dude, first of all, I mean, I do wonder what the Giants offensive line would have ranked if they didn't play the Eagles twice. Secondly, who gives a shit about, like, it's just such an arbitrary notion that the offensive line, look, offensive line talent matters. Offensive line rankings in terms of like, like the quantity of pressure allowed during a large sample size, that doesn't really tell you anything. Like, it just says that according to a certain group of guys who analyze data, like it's really like PFF people don't realize it's opinion based. They're judging plays based on what they think makes the most sense. And it's cool. Like, if you're able to analyze it from that perspective, then, that's just taking it with a grain of salt, and that's fine. But you can't use that as the end all be all, because we all know that the Bears offensive line, the reason why it ranked so highly is because they run blocked very well, but they just did not do a good job pass blocking. That's kind of, that's why they're going to be in the market for big time offensive tackles this season. So yeah, judging offensive lines with PFF, not your best move, Colin. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Forgot to mention that the Bears punted on the season after the Dallas game, trading Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn, the two best defensive players on the team. Just saying, like, we're not going to win with these guys. And, when you punt, like when you trade your best players in the middle of the season, kind of gives you a bit of a disadvantage. And then he started talking, and this is where it got really fucking ridiculous, is when he started talking about Darnell Mooney being better than any Giants receiver, which is true. But he just didn't mention the fact that Mooney got hurt in the Jets game where Fields wasn't playing and didn't play the rest of the season. And once Mooney was out of the lineup, the Bears offense started performing worse because Mooney's a good receiver. And quarterbacks need good receivers. Surprise, surprise. But during that middle of the season when Mooney was healthy, the Bears, they were in sync. And you could watch Mooney's highlights from this year. He and Fields were definitely showing some chemistry. And there's no doubt that he missed them starting in the Green Bay and going on from that. Because, I mean, he was throwing to Equanimous St. Brown and Pettis, whatever his name is, Dante Pettis. And yeah, so after the after the Jets game, rather, no Mooney. Fields played 4 straight games against Green Bay, who owns the Bears, let's be real, Buffalo, Philly, and Detroit, all teams who have substantially better rosters than the Bears, but they did so without their best receiver. And, also let's, Buffalo and Philly just sandwiched in the middle there. It's not exactly, easy for a team that has just traded all their best players and, have a bunch of injuries both sides of the ball. He also mentioned how Claypool, he brought up the Giants a lot in this comparison, which I thought was kind of weird. He said Claypool would start for the Giants. Sure, true. But people don't realize Claypool was only on the field for 50% of offensive snaps. He was the only times Claypool played over 50% of the snaps were in the Packers game where he got injured and played through his injury, and the 2 games in which Field didn't play, which was the last game of the season and the Jets game. In Pittsburgh, he played well over 80% of his snaps in most of the games. I'm going to read it for you real quick. 92%, 92%, 93%, 73%. Okay, weird. 91%, 86%, 85%, 80%. So as his workload during the season maybe went down a little bit in Pittsburgh, but still playing over 80% of the snaps. Then he gets to Chicago and it went 35%, 31%, 42%, all in games that the Bears are putting up good offensive numbers, by the way. 32 points, 30 points, 24 points against the Falcons. Weird game that was. And then Jets game, 67%, no Fields. Comes back, Green Bay game, 63%. He gets injured, though, and he wasn't playing most of the game. And then he missed the Philly game and the Buffalo game. So Fields was playing that game without his 2 best receivers, and he still, managed to make some plays. And then the Detroit game, which sucked for everyone involved. So, yeah, Fields' last game was bad. The first minute, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but let's look at it objectively. The Bears had punted on the season at that point. The Lions were playing for everything. And that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Like the Bears were playing the long game all season because they knew they weren't good. So they traded their guys and they didn't necessarily set everyone up for success all the time. They're all learning. And what it kind of comes down to is you don't give up on a quarterback this early, especially one with as much talent as Justin Fields. And I don't mind the media talking about trading him to an extent, but it has gotten annoying. I like setting the smoke screens, but at the same time, it's like it does worry you a bit that that Poles is going to make a dumb decision. Regardless, I just think it's stupid that anyone thinks the Bears should move off of the guy. I guess I can't really rationalize it at this point. He's too young. He's a kid, and after seeing what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, who has a similar skill set to Justin, but was not nearly as touted coming out of college. They like Diop said earlier, they set him up for success. And I think, if the Bears are able to take advantage of all the money and all the assets they'll be able to acquire with that number 1 overall pick, I think that they'll be able to set up Fields in a way that is conducive to his strengths. I'm encouraged by Fields this season because there was steady progression as the year went on and between years 1 and year 2. And I don't know what the fuck Colin Cowherd is talking about. All right, Evan, look, man, I'm sorry that I kept you waiting very long. I had a lot to say. But look, I got a buddy of mine who's been on the show before. Great friend. He knows what he's talking about. Excellent speech and debate coach and teacher. And so, you definitely don't want to get in an argument with this guy unless, you're me and you're his friend. And we love to argue and talk sports all the time. So without further ado, Evan Feldman, welcome to the show.
Hello. How's it going? Good to see you, buddy.
It's good to see you too, bud. I'm a little pissed off at some of the media things that have been going on, but I am also just anxious and very excited for this offseason for the Bears.
Absolutely. Do you want to start with some of the stuff that you were just talking about with Colin's takes, or do you want to go back to some of the stuff that you started with? Because I have some.
I want to go back. Let's go back to the Super Bowl. How did you feel about the Super Bowl, and how did you feel about some of the things I said about the Super Bowl? I feel Hurts's performance would be interesting. How you feel about the whole Mahomes, Andy Reid. Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so I think that Patrick Mahomes' entire second half is an epitome of why Jalen Hurts shouldn't feel bad about the loss. Mahomes had arguably the greatest half in Super Bowl history. He had one incompletion. He didn't put up large yards in the totality of the game, but almost every single play gained yardage in the entirety of the second half. And
that's insane.
It's mind-boggling to think about. But also, I think an important part of the narrative surrounding Jalen Hurts that some analysts have been talking about, but I don't think is getting enough attention, is that it entirely dismantles this old view of Jalen Hurts that we used to have. The last time that we saw him in a game like this was in the national championship game in college, where he was benched for Tua Tagovailoa, which crazy how those two careers are going.
Yeah, it is funny to see these guys in the NFL now, that's for sure.
Yeah, but the fact that he played just as well as Mahomes, if not better, for the entirety of the game, I think is really good for Jalen's career trajectory and preventing some dumb media analysis about how, he can't step up in the big game.
Right. Yeah, there's no question that like we were saying, he ran out of time. He played his ass off. He had a great game. One mistake, and other than that, that happens, right? And he bounced back the next drive, scored a touchdown.
One, absolutely. He responded as if it didn't even happen. But two,
lots of moxie there.
Is it even his mistake? The field conditions were abysmal. This is the third Super Bowl we've had in Arizona in the last 2 decades. We should probably know how fields work at this point. Shout outs to Justin.
Yeah, right. Yeah, shout out to Justin. You know it. But
seriously, the turf and the grass, that should be an NFL thing that we just have taken care of at this point. There shouldn't be a field condition that isn't ideal for. Also, it's Arizona. It's not like they're constantly dealing with rain and snow.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, and it's indoors as well. I mean, I guess they have the retractable roof, but it's like, yeah, it is kind of ridiculous that the playing field was as shitty as it was. I'm not like, look, anyone who says that, like, if an Eagles fan is going to say like, oh, we lost because of the field conditions, then that's excuses. But
both
at
teams
the same time, if people say it was a factor, sure, like it was like that like, yeah, it was definitely a factor, and it impacted the Eagles more than the Chiefs, and I think that has more to do with Andy Reid being very prepared.
Yeah, and also the style of the Eagles offense being more vulnerable to rough field conditions based on their running game. Sure. But I do want to push back on this narrative that came up in the comments a little bit earlier about how the Chiefs were fed this playoff run. They faced the Bengals. They faced the Bills. The Eagles had an easier. Not the Bills. Who do they?
They played the Jags. They played the Jags.
They played the Jags. Who are
Good
going to
team.
be something moving forward, right? But the Eagles had a far easier route to the playoffs. Like, if anything, that
no doubt.
If you were convinced of the NFL like rigging games, you could argue that the Eagles were given an easier path. But two, the referee call is not evidence of the NFL rigging. Like, it's starting to become talked about more in the discourse regarding the National Football League. And some of it is like very memed and jokes of like, haha, here's the script. But I think some people actually believe that the NFL is rigging games. And look, the NFL and Roger Goodell do plenty of shady stuff, for sure.
Oh, yeah. However, and I'm sure there are some shit, like refs like to be shitty sometimes too. That's fair.
Sure. But if the NFL was rigging the season, it would be like Jets and Cowboys every year, right? Like the Cowboys would never miss the playoffs. They would never, like, I think the Cowboys' last 2 decades of success is testament to how much the NFL isn't rigging games. You think it's good for the NFL's bottom line that Dallas hasn't made a conference championship?
I agree with you. I think it's obvious that the NFL is not rigged. However, I do think that the Dallas storylines and the memes are very funny. And I do think that, like, the whole idea of Dallas, like, falling off of their mantle of America's team, I think that that's actually helpful for the NFL because, if the biggest fan base is the Cowboys and Cowboys fans are fucking pissed all the time, then I think that drives more media attention. I think that is good for all their social media. And
I think that would be the case if they were consistently terrible.
But also, if that's the case, why not have them like lose a conference championship or a Super Bowl, right?
Exactly.
Or like if I still think like if the NFL was rigged, Brady would have won his 8th ring this year.
Did you say 8th or 80th?
8th, 80 for Brady, baby.
The point stands nonetheless.
Right. But I do think I'm with you on that. Like I think it's funny that people are talking about the NFL being scripted because it's very. I mean, like it's too hard to script a game like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like
it's not WWE where like every motion can be like perfectly planned out. Like that's so much harder with 22 people on the field.
And there is a disconnect I think people have between rigging and cheating, right? Mm-hmm. Like people cheat all the time. Sure. In football, like that's kind of the nature of the game a little bit. That's kind of, that's the John Madden method. That's like, obviously Bill Belichick. It's like, there's going to be some cheating. There's going to be some gamesmanship, people trying to get around the rules. But that doesn't mean it's like a corrupt system in place that, like that doesn't mean we're scripting things. It doesn't mean that.
Yeah, it's not the American economy rigged.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a totally different thing. And it's also like, yeah, I mean, really for me, I just love the NFL scripted jokes and the memes. And it's like, I like posting a GIF of your Childish Gambino. I think I posted a GIF of him in Community, like screaming like no, and I wrote like Brandon Bostic when he reads the script for the 2014 NFC Championship, the Packers player who dropped the onside kick, and a lot of people liked it. For me, like I was very happy about that. But it's like, just reading those threads of the NFL being rigged, just like it cracks me up. And I do like. I hope the joke continues, and I do like that people take it very seriously.
In regards to the call, though, like the controversial call, I think that your take is correct. I also really appreciate. I hadn't thought about this. I don't think enough people are talking about this. Comparing this year's call to the Rams Bengals situation last year. Like, I think that was a really good comparison from you, and I haven't heard anyone bring that up.
It was the first thing that came to mind for me, and it's just like, LeBron was at that Super Bowl, by the way, last year, and he didn't say shit. Yeah, obviously he was rooting for his Rams. That Cowboys fan.
LeBron does a lot of good, and I
love LeBron. I have a lot of respect for LeBron. I don't like what he's done to the Bulls over the years, but like, can't help that.
Even the Pope is wrong sometimes. That's not the perfect analogy, but you get what
not the best, but I get what you're saying.
Fair, probably not the Pope. God, even a perfect being
might get because wrong every now and then, man.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. For this network, that's the right one.
I do have a conspiracy for you, though, if you're interested, regarding the call.
Yes, hit me.
My conspiracy is that that the Chiefs had no intention of scoring on that play. I think they wanted the penalty because
I like that, and I kind of agree, but continue.
I don't, because here's the thing, like the ball, based on where it landed, like obviously would have been in the end zone. Based on all of the other decisions that the Chiefs made in the end of the game, I don't think they had any intention of coming down with that at that moment in time with over 2 minutes left. Look at, like, for evidence of this, look to how Jerick McKinnon had an easy touchdown and still slid at like the 1.5 yard line. Like, unlike
Ahmad Bradshaw in Super Bowl 46, where I mean, you love the Giants.
I do.
When he fell on his ass into the end zone, like he just couldn't stop himself in time. Scored a touchdown. Obviously, it paid off, but like, yeah, they gave the ball back to Brady. But yeah, no, you're right. Like he gave himself up.
Yeah, and so with that, I don't think they had any intention of scoring so early. Like, yes, maybe with 2.5 minutes left, like the Chiefs thought maybe they could get the ball back again after the Eagles drive down the field, but I don't think that was the plan. I think that the game script that Andy Reid wanted was executed almost to perfection.
Yes. Oh, completely. In the second half, especially, it was just like this whole idea that, we're gonna, like, he clearly saw something in the Eagles defense. He saw a certain level of aggressiveness, and yes, Patrick Mahomes had an unbelievable half, and he probably had his easiest half. And I shouldn't say easiest because he made some tough plays, tough throws, but like those 2 touchdown passes, I've never seen him
on like 1 foot. Like his other leg was just in barely.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It was amazing and heroic, but like still, those touchdowns were layups, objectively layups, and
But I don't think that's anything because of.
It's not against Mahomes. It's just.
I also don't think it's against the Eagles. I think it's a testament to Andy Reid's designs.
I agree.
Like,
I agree to that.
Literally on both touchdown passes, it was perfectly timed where the ball was hiked at the peak of the motion moving inward until when they both cut back out.
Yep. And even like when Greg Olsen like broke down the play, even the more casual observers who aren't real football fans were like, "Oh my God, that's so smart!" Like he bakes in and cuts out like right behind the receiver, and they were able to like pick up on some of that deception, which I thought was pretty cool. To go back to what you were saying, yeah, I could see that conspiracy is grounded, and it reminds me of, I just posted a video about it, like teams intentionally jumping off sides in order to save themselves a down or to save themselves an extra 40 seconds at the end of the game. This is why I think that every NFL coach before they get hired should have to play a game of Madden, just to kind of show.
I kind of love that idea.
I
don't think it ever happened, but
see,
love that.
See how they manage the clock, because that's so important. But yeah, I could see that, and it reminds me of a time in the NFC Championship game 2019, 2020, the Niners and the Packers. Kyle Shanahan late in the game, he basically pulled the ref aside and said, "Look, what's going to happen on this play? George Kittle's going to run over here. He's going to cut out. and he's going to be held, and it's going to be a first down. And sure
Is
enough,
that
that
true?
exact thing happened. And people forget coaches are allowed to tell the refs, like, they're allowed to say, watch for holding on this play. And that, if you're allowed to do that, you're allowed to design plays with the intent of drawing a penalty. There's
Did
nothing wrong with
Shanahan?
it.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but did Shanahan do that because he had noticed holding happening on Kittle throughout the game, or because he just had analyzed enough game tape to know that like this is what they do in that scenario?
That's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think he knew that Kittle would draw the flag, and I think he knew that that the Packers were going to hold because the Packers love to hold. That's kind of like their thing. But yeah, no, I think it is, yes, a little bit of both.
Your Madden idea, by the way, maybe instead of having the league do it when you're GM of the Bears, that'll be the way that you hire coaches. It'll be your insight secret.
Well, I'm hoping, I appreciate that, but I'm hoping that I could just be hired as Ryan Poles' assistant because he's just so fucking good. Like, the goal is to just be like in his office for a while, and then he either retires and gives the job to me, or I start my expansion team, the Memphis Jews, and we just kind of go from there. But no, I would love
the
that.
Memphis Maccabees.
Oh wait, that's tough. That's actually kind of tough. I like that. But yeah, dude, how'd you like the game though? Like, I'm sure you're rooting for the Chiefs.
I mean,
I don't know.
Only because I don't like I hate the Eagles as a Giants fan, but I did like the story of Hurts leading that squad to victory. But sure. Yeah, I mean, it was an overall great game, right? You said it best. We've had excellent Super Bowls back to back. The last thing I will say on the call is, was it an removing the situation around it? Was it an accurate call? Yes. Bradbury even admitted so. The only Eagles fans or anyone who is supporting the Eagles in the game, I feel you. It sucks, but you're not mad because it was an incorrect call. You're mad because it hurt the team you were cheering for, and that's
right.
Okay.
And I think they're also mad because it's like you don't want to see ticky-tacky calls late in the game. I get it.
I get that. I do. Right. I understand that. But I think it would have been so much worse if a call that was objectively there wasn't called, right? Because if it was flipped the other way and it had benefited the Eagles fans wouldn't have been complaining in the way that they are now.
Yeah.
It's okay to be upset when something doesn't go your way, but that doesn't mean that it's a warranted evidence to show that an incorrect call was made.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it's one of those things where, again, and I said it at the beginning of the show, it's one of those things. If that happened against the Bears, I would have been furious, and if it would have happened in the Bears' favor, I would have been very delighted. And if it happened against the Packers, I would be gloating about it, like, haha, y'all suck. But no, I'm with you there, and I'm personally, like, as an objective fan who was into both teams, like I like both teams, and that call did not tarnish the game for me. For me, it was still an amazing Super Bowl. So many great, fun plays. It's not if I'm ranking my favorite Super Bowls of all time, it wouldn't be the top of the list, but it's still it's up there. I think it's a top 10 Super Bowl. Definitely one of the highest scoring ones. And
better than the Rams Patriots.
Hey, I honestly, in hindsight, I love that game a lot more, partially because I was at your house, and that was when I met Nick, a great friend of mine now.
We personally had an excellent time. The game itself was not great.
No, also, but the reason why I liked it is because that was the year of, and Bears fans are listening, I'm going to say it, trigger warning, that was the year of the double doink. And so I was like, if I'm not going to be happy, then no one should be happy. And so I was happy to see the Patriots get their 6th ring, and the only fans that were happy about it were Patriots fans, and even they were a little disappointed. And so for me, I love Super Bowl 53. And also Julian Edelman was the MVP. Represent
sure. You gotta support the rare Jewish football player.
Yeah, gotta love that. But yeah, no, it's still obviously this game definitely superior to that. And hopefully we'll be seeing Justin Fields in one of these pretty soon.
Yes.
And
let's you wanna shift to Colin, because
this is what I'm doing. Yes, that is that was my attempt at a segue.
I 100% agree perfectly.
With me or Colin?
You on the
Okay,
transition.
Yeah.
I agree on the transition, and I agree with some of the stuff that you said. Regarding Colin's comments regarding the play about the two tight ends pushing from the back, like, I agree more with you, but he's not entirely wrong, right? Like,
that's fair.
The way that you're right is it's absolutely football. It's ground and pound, like old school, rough and tough, like football. Like, that is the test. That is what we point to as evidence of like true football.
Oh yeah.
So I think any claim that it's not
in the spirit of the game
is incorrect. However, I do agree that it's a loophole, right? Like, the idea of having other people on the line, the two tight ends in this case, push the ball carrier forward. Yeah, it's like a clever little trick that we haven't like seen used traditionally.
It is kind of amazing that no one's done that until this year.
Yeah, like, it was very similar to, I think even Colin brought up like the comparison of the Wildcat or like flea flickers, right? Like,
a little bit.
Cheating.
Wildcat people caught on pretty quickly.
Sure, because it was also used far more.
Right.
But yeah, I don't like. It's not cheating, but it's a loophole.
Sure. I'll give you that. I still don't think the NFL should ban it, because I think that what that tells you is like, the response should be defensive players should get stronger. You gotta, like, there are ways to stop the play because it's coming.
Or defensive linebackers should push their linemen.
Yeah, why not, right? Get corners in there. And I guess maybe like, at a certain point, you start playing the math game, and like maybe a receiver leaves and goes outside, corner has to respect it. And I don't think at one point Chris Jones tried to stop it by jumping over the line. I don't think that's the solution, because once he's in the air, he doesn't have any leverage. So it's like, his whole Chris Jones' whole thing
someone
is like
carrying Chris Jones, which that's just a feat within itself.
Yeah, like, honestly, that's amazing in itself, right? Or on fourth down, have an offensive lineman get in the game. Put a
interesting.
Why not, right? Like we recently had on the other show, Big Cat Williams, who's the Bears left tackle for, the right tackle for like a little over a decade, and he started out as a defensive lineman. So it's like, why not have get a little extra oomph on those plays?
A lot of those guys play both sides of the line in high school, anyways.
Right. It would be interesting to see like how often a team could do, like, if a team could run that play every time for 4 yards, like, hey, why not? Right. I'm just saying, if it's allowed at that point, then I'd say, okay, maybe we can change a rule a little bit here and there. But in general, I think it's silly to want to outlaw it just because it looks ugly. But
yeah,
loophole fair. I could see where it would be a loophole. But really, the main thing I want to talk about is Justin Fields.
Yes. So let's go into Colin's analysis. So similarly, I agree more with you here, but I think that there's more inaccuracies here compared to what we just talked about. So first off, Colin's analysis about how, the Bears have so many better options than the Giants. First off, not by a lot. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and also Saquon Barkley's pretty good. Just saying.
Yeah, like the difference between Barkley and Montgomery / Herbert, I think, accounts enough for the difference between like the two between Kmet and Bellinger, the tight end for the Giants.
I can't believe Bellinger is on the Cubs and the Giants at the same time.
Yeah, Cody Bellinger. Yeah, it's pretty good. That's solid. But I think the thing that Colin is missing in his breakdown here is the impact of coaching. Like, Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year, and very well deservedly so.
Sure.
The Bears coaching offensively this year was not particularly strong, and part of that is because they were abandoning the year justifiably.
Right.
But I think,
and it was, I feel like it was new systems also. But yes, continue.
Yeah, I think to say that it's a reflection of Fields rather than a reflection of coaching is just inaccurate. Like, he's more backing at this point of Daniel Jones than he is of Justin Fields. And look, Daniel Jones has grown, but Fields has far more upside and is not even halfway done, or is now officially halfway
right.
With his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, though, that I will push back on is your comments regarding the offensive line.
Interesting.
Because yes, PFF does do rankings, but what Colin was referring to wasn't the rankings. It was their grades, the PFF grades. That's not that's not an opinion-based metric. That's like a mathematical analysis that is far more complex than you or I understand.
Well, actually, look, I have looked into this a little bit, and I see what you're saying, but it isn't as factually based as you think, because yes, it is complex analysis and they are breaking down and crunching numbers, but at the same time, it's like PFF still can't be in the huddle. Like, they don't know the play calls. They don't know, like oftentimes with PFF, like they'll give someone a negative score. Like, for example, maybe they'll give, who's the Giants tackle? Andrew Thomas, I think his name is.
Andrew Thomas, I'm going to bring him up, but go ahead. Gesundheit.
Thank you. What's it? So maybe, for example, Andrew Thomas misses a block, right? He gets worked inside or something like that, gives up a sack. They might lower his grade, but that also could very easily be because of a miscommunication where the guard was supposed to help on that play and he didn't. And PFF doesn't see these things because they're not in the huddles. So on the one hand,
sure, but really, I think that
all they're judging is the eye test. But the eye test, you might say
disagree. I don't
some
think
people might say the tape always tells the truth, but it doesn't.
For sure. But one, it's not always the eye test, right? Because they're also using what very few stats we have for offensive linemen. But two, I think that while your feedback or while your commentary about not being in the huddle is reasonable, it's non-unique, right? Like, when that's the case for every player across every team. And considering that discrepancy is there for the entire league, I think that variable not being part of the picture doesn't show the inaccuracy of PFF grades. I think it shows the room for growth in PFF grades.
Sure. No, and I could agree with that. But that's kind of like a little bit of my point is that I do like PFF, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people associated with this network don't like it. I like it more than them because I do think that
this network being Fox?
No, this network being a Chicago Clubhouse network.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right. I think it's that'd be cool if it was Fox, but no. I don't know, man. I'm the thing is, I guess just based on how they grade, it's I don't think there's ever going to be a way to perfectly rate an offensive line just because there's so many moving parts and so many different things happening at the same time. Also, and look, I see where you're coming from, but also I think my main point on that is the Bears offensive line was good at run blocking. There's no way around that. They run blocked very well. And I think that kind of elevated their standing in PFF, but their pass blocking was shitty. It was objectively shitty. And that's more like you could see it just watching the games. It's a bit of an eye test thing. And it's there was one game where our center, Sam Mustapher, he scored on PFF. I think he scored a 1.5 in pass blocking.
Excellent.
Which is I don't know how, it's almost impressive. It's almost impressive how you could do that poorly. And again, PFF, grain of salt. But
yeah,
come on, man.
Sure, and there's definitely individual calls that any institution or any organization makes that we're going to raise an eyebrow to. Sure. But to say that one, they're just not personal ranking. They do personal rankings, but what he was referring to was not. But two, offensive line grades do matter. If this was about a game Sure, but I think when you analyze over the course of a season, it takes into account all of these, or a lot of these other outside factors that you're referring to, like miscommunication between the line, right? That can happen between any team. The difficulty of the defensive linemen that they're going against, right? Of course, I think those things average out over the course of a season. But to give you credit, sorry.
There's a lot of variables. But yes.
Absolutely, right? Like mathematical formulas are an imperfect science to tangibly measure a algorithm that like is beyond our comprehension.
Right. And football's kind of an algorithm beyond our comprehension.
Right, exactly. But to give you credit, right, like even using PFF grades against Colin, right? Like, as you mentioned, to say that the Giants offensive line is bad, I think is wrong, right? First off, Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal are ranked graded third and fourth amongst all tackles. Do you know the highest graded Bears tackle?
Let me guess. It's probably Braxton Jones.
It's Riley Reef at 32, which is
Jesus.
like that's a gap. Like to have two in the top 5, and then the gap between the two Giants tackles and the best.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's pass blocking. Tackles are there to pass block. In general, the tackles are your pass blockers, and guards are your maulers, right? And so that just kind of goes to show the Giants. Yes, the Giants were like maybe the Bears had better grades, but the Giants were significantly better at pass blocking. There's no way around. Like they have 2 really good first-round pick offensive tackles. They were able to protect Daniel Jones. He threw 5 interceptions all year.
And like speaking of guards, right? Like number 3 for guards is on grades is Tevin Jenkins, and number 6 is y'all's Mark. How do you pronounce his last name? Glau.
Wait, for the Bears?
No. Excuse me. Tevin Jenkins is the guard for y'all, number 3, versus Mark Glowinski. That it's always the Polish names that.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, who's ranked graded number 6 by PFF.
So he's with the Giants.
Correct. Glowinski plays for the Giants.
Right. And Tevin Jenkins is number 3?
Correct.
Interesting. So that's the thing. Tevin Jenkins is a mauler. He has always been, like that's why you draft him, is to knock you the fuck out, like to run people the fuck over. Brett Coleman did a whole review on him when he was at, I think, Oklahoma State. Just like his whole game is like he's a big nasty. But I mean, his pass blocking, I don't know what PFF says, but I'm guessing his run blocking outweighs his. I mean, yes, I'm guessing his run blocking outweighs his pass blocking significantly. I could be wrong about that.
But that's the one offensive line position where the Bears outrank the Giants. Like Sam Mustipher, shout out, you brought him up earlier, is like 29th in PFF grades versus the Giants center, John Feliciano, who's number 5. Like, I would argue the Bears offensive line is worse than the Giants.
Yeah, like I don't understand where Colin's getting his information from if he's saying that somehow the Giants ranked 30th and the Bears ranked 14th. Like what stat is that? Like what's he looking at that says that? Because I mean, everything we're talking about is the one well-ranked offensive lineman that the Bears have is Jenkins, and he's a mauler. Like he's again very much offensive. So it's just like, I don't know, man. I think that's definitely crazy, and yeah, no, I do think that plays into my point. So I guess like going back to just like the Fields conversation in general.
Yes.
Do you think the Bears should trade him?
I don't. I do think that Colin does make a few points that, coming to hear from a Bears fan's perspective, I understand would be upsetting. Sure. Some of his analysis is correct. His conclusion is not, right? The conclusion, like his analysis about how Fields over the course of 2 years hasn't shown that he's garbage, but hasn't elevated himself to a superstar level yet, and is like between 10 and 20. Fair.
Right.
Sure. Right. And, you even bring up about the fact that y'all traded Roquan and Robert Quinn, but I don't think that, especially because they're on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think that negates what Colin's saying here about how Fields did have some pieces around him, both on the line and offensive weapon-wise.
Sure, but at the same time, it's like they did get injured around the time the offense started to dwindle.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where I'm like,
and that's fair, right? Like I think the criticism of Fields to a point is reasonable.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm critical of Fields as well. I think he's earned, tough criticism by being a good player. But yeah, no, I do think I absolutely agree.
But before we even dive into like why it's wrong, let's play this scenario out. Does anyone think the Bears are a piece away from being a legitimate a quarterback away from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender? Because I don't.
Oh, absolutely not.
Maybe
no, I absolutely think, like, objectively. Hi, Mom. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Hi, Barb.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, like if the Bears were like, fuck this, let's bring in Derek Carr, good quarterback, not great.
They trade Fields for Lamar Jackson. They're a playoff contender.
That is a lateral move for Lamar Jackson. I'm telling you, he's going to a team without many weapons to a team without many weapons. Although Claypool and Mooney, when healthy, are quite good, and I want to see Claypool with a full offseason.
Yeah,
I think, I feel like, sure. Look, I'm not Fields. He improved this year. He was mostly very good, I think, and I think
huge year 2 growth for him.
Absolutely, and I do understand criticisms of him. My main criticism of him is he hasn't really gotten used to checking it down yet. He's so used to trying to be Batman when he should be comfortable being Robin every now and then. Like he should, dump it off to Montgomery. He's good with the ball in his hands. Like it's not anymore.
I doubt they're re-signing him, but yeah.
Right, sure.
Maybe
but like still, check it to Herbert, check it to your running back, check it to, make good throws, right? Like make short, easy completions instead of always trying to make the downfield throw. I do think a lot of that was pressing because the Bears didn't call a lot of passing plays. I felt like they ran the ball a lot,
especially early in the year. And because of that, I feel like he didn't always, he was, he was wanting to take more shots. But at the same time, it's like, that's my main thing is, Joe Burrow wins playoff games because he checks the ball down. He knows about clock management. He's able to, involve his running backs, involve, the short passing game. And I think that's something that Fields, could absolutely work on. At the same time, there's no reason to think he won't develop that part of his game because everything else, I think he throws a gorgeous deep ball. Some of his best passing highlights this year are, deep passes. That's something Trubisky could never do. And people like to, I know, and I love Mitch Trubisky. I think he's a great guy, but it's like, what? He's okay as a person, sure. As a quarterback,
as a person, he seems cool. As a quarterback, very mid-tier backup. But I think he is people are like, the way Colin was talking was like Fields is just another Mitch Trubisky. Basically, he didn't say that verbatim, but it's so the difference between these two is unbelievable. Like this guy, there's no reason to believe that a quarterback in year 2 with as much talent as Fields and who has shown the ability to grow as much as Fields and who has shown the toughness of Fields and who has shown the playmaking ability, the unique playmaking ability of Fields, meaning his ability to run and to make throws on the run and to throw the deep ball so well. There's no reason to give up on a guy like that. There's absolutely no reason.
I agree, right? One, Fields' upside is top 5 guy in the league, right?
Agreed. Completely agree.
He's not there yet, but he's clearly shown the upside that's justifiable enough to keep him. But also, we've seen the model over the course of the last 6-7 years with Stafford and then Mahomes last year or this year being the exception of get a quarterback on their rookie deal, stack weapons around them while their contract is affordable, and just go all in.
Yep. And then by year, once you do have to pay the quarterback, at that point, the expectation is that the quarterback is good enough to start being the guy that elevates talent. And I think I have no reason to believe Fields won't, hit that steady progression. And even if he doesn't, I could see a scenario where the market for quarterback, I could see a scenario where quarterbacks don't get paid quite as much as they've been getting paid. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Deshaun Watson deal. He's obviously, we'll see how he ends up doing in Cleveland, but I don't think it's going to work out there. There's just too many question marks, and it's and because of that, I could see a scenario where just that upsets the market for the quarterback position a little bit, but a little bit's enough to make the difference between, being able to keep a couple extra players for your quarterbacks. I do think eventually the Bears will be paying Justin Fields a lot of money, and I think he will earn that. But I think that's also a good thing. I think that means, I think Ryan Poles will only do that if he, balls the fuck out next season.
Absolutely.
But that being said, look, I'm really a lot of this angst towards Colin and just anger about the people talking about trading Fields is because it's I'm just ready for this offseason, man. I am so excited. I love the position the Bears are in.
Cap space.
Ungodly amounts of cap space, right? We got the first and number 1 overall pick,
which you'll probably trade back.
Yep, and they should, right? They'll be able to still get a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson if they do.
Exactly.
And you like Will Anderson?
Yeah, we as we were talking about the last time I was on, I know that you think Jalen Carter's a better fit, and that's fair. I just think Will Anderson's talent. If they stay at 1 overall, if they move back, then take the guy you want.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think they will stay at 1 overall because there's
no reason.
I don't think it will be wise. You have too many holes to fill. But and also some decent free agents. We'll see who ends up re-signing. But and I do think they will acquire a number 1 receiver, whether that's Hopkins or I'm hoping Devontae Adams, but probably not going to be him.
I don't know if that's happening.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I think I think that's a cool dream. I think it's probably they'll sign or draft a number 2, a 1B kind of guy.
I think they will trade for Hopkins. Because Hopkins wants out of Arizona. There's a new regime in there. I cannot see him playing for the Cardinals next season. They have the money. He's only got 2 more years on his deal. I just think it makes all the sense in the world.
I don't think it makes sense for the Bears to do that unless you think that Fields is going to elevate the team to Super Bowl contention this coming year or the following.
Yeah, I guess
maybe the following. If you trade for him next offseason with a year left, then I'm more on board.
I just my thing is just with the volatility of the NFL, so many 1-score games for the Bears this season. It's and just with the sheer amount of money the Bears do have and the draft capital that they do have, it's I do think that by next season they could compete. I don't necessarily think they'll be a favorite to win a Super Bowl, but I think they could absolutely be a playoff team. And once you're in the tournament, who knows what's going to happen?
If Rodgers gets traded from the Packers, I don't think the Bears are in the basement of the NFC North.
That's for sure. And oh my God, I'm ready for that day, man. I'm just ready to hear him say, I want out, and I'm ready to,
when he returns from his probably ayahuasca-filled retreat into 4 days of silence. Yeah.
Just when I thought that guy couldn't get any weirder, he's I'm gonna go sit in the dark for 4 days straight. Hey man, whatever floats your boat, but he's just strange.
Can you imagine one of us just being in the darkness by ourselves for 4? I think that's actually torture for us.
Oh no, I would go insane. I would absolutely go insane.
It would be awful. I would have less clarity.
Oh my God, yeah. I feel like I'd come out of that with more baggage than before.
It'd be more trauma.
It'd be traumatizing. Just voluntary solitary confinement. That kind of flows nicely. But yeah, no, it's just I'm hoping he comes out of that and is the only thing I saw was me winning a Super Bowl with the New York Jets, baby. or fucking whoever the hell in the AFC,
Right.
just not Green Bay, man. I'm tired of him. Like I ready for him to be gone. I want to see him go to the Patriots just so the NFL could see how it feels to
hate him.
There's just because I feel like people just recently started hating him, but I've been hating him
I agree. I think he's been very likable most of his career
until like recent years. He's become an asshole, and it's like,
yeah.
My thing right now is I hated Aaron Rodgers before it was cool.
You did,
like I'm like the Aaron Rodgers hating hipster.
I mean, I think most Bears fans did by by necessity.
Right. But like we hated him. Sure, we hated him before it was cool. So now I want the rest of the league to deal with the wrath of Aaron Rodgers and Bill Belichick. I mean, for however long it takes. And I'm not going to feel bad if Aaron Rodgers goes to New England and beats Josh Allen twice a year. It's just not something that's going to upset me. But like again, like everything else, I don't know. Like, do you think he's going to stay in Green Bay, or do you think he's gonna?
I don't. I think it just one. I think he's going to want out. Two. I mean, look, Jordan Love was a bad decision to begin with. I hated that decision the moment it was made. Like, what a middle finger to Rodgers to not only not draft an offensive weapon, but to draft your replacement. Like, I think it would be preposterous to not get rid of Rodgers at this point.
Agreed.
But also, I think he wants out.
You think he does want out?
I think he's going to end up wanting out. Right?
Yeah, like, I mean, he wants to live in the toilet paper capital of the world their whole life.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Oh, Green Bay is the toilet paper capital of the world. I'm not making that up. That is true. You can look that up.
Wow. They must have been really doing well during the pandemic. But that and cheese, honestly, that kind of explains the toilet paper. Maybe it's all the cheese.
Oh, wow. I look at you that is some. See, this is why you're so good at speech and debate. But just I want to show you real quick what it looks like, because it's like, I mean, like
God, I don't know if you tinted it, but it looks evil. It looks diabolical.
Doesn't it look sinister? Like these two are about to like fuck your shit up, and
it looks like Darth Vader's like football army.
Yeah, it looks like Darth Vader and Lord Voldemort joined forces or something. It's like it is.
I think they have too much.
I want the AFC to know. Like, I want to see Aaron Rodgers and Bill Belichick against Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid in the AFC Championship. That's the dream. That'd be great. Sure. And I want Mahomes to win.
I get it.
And then lose to the Bears in the Super Bowl.
One, I think that both Belichick and Rodgers have too much of a nose to really fit the Voldemort comparison.
Fair.
Two, speaking of Josh Allen from a second ago, I think Fields, the growth between 1 and 2 is very similar to the way that Josh Allen grew between 1 and 2. Now, their strengths are not the same.
Similar, but not the same.
Yeah. Like, Fields definitely is more of an athlete, and Allen has more. You think Fields is not as more of an athlete than Josh Allen?
I think that okay, yeah, I think Fields is a better athlete. Allen is more of a freight train, if that makes sense.
Correct.
Fields runs more like, obviously these are like extreme comparisons. Fields runs more like a LaShawn McCoy, and Josh Allen runs more like a Derrick Henry.
Oh, I was betting money that you were going to say Mike Alstott, because I know you love him.
That's a good one too. Yeah, a little Alstott in Josh Allen.
Absolutely, but yeah, like Allen wasn't what he is in year 2. Lamar.
Look, there are always going to be exceptions, right? Like, I mean, not everyone comes into the league and lights the world on fire and lights it on fire immediately. Oftentimes, rookies just take more time to progress. And I think Justin Fields is no exception. And I also think playing at Ohio State, while that doesn't mean he's going to, like, I hear people say, Ohio State quarterbacks never do well. It's like, okay, sure. But that's just because we haven't had enough. Like, I mean, at a certain point, someone's going to work.
I mean, yeah.
I think that the problem is the learning curve from college to the NFL is harder when you go to a school like Ohio State, where offensive line is such a high priority, and where, you're at such a good program that, like, when you get to the NFL, yeah, you might be a great talent. You might have a lot of skills, but you're going to be on your ass a little bit more. Like, it's just going to be harder to adapt to the game. And I like the way Fields adapted over the past few years.
I think that was more true 5-6 years ago. I do
Sure.
think that the recent success of Alabama quarterbacks specifically is starting to dismantle that
That notion.
ideology, because
I guess
Ohio
the
State
difference is there's better. I think there are really good pass rushers in the SEC though. That's my thing. And
sure.
I'm not saying there aren't any in the big. What is it?
I
That's
mean,
the Big Ten, right?
but I think like there's very few things the Big Ten has equal to or a little bit above the SEC. I think their pass rushers are pretty good. Like on the
I think their
secondary,
offensive line
SEC
is
blows
special
Big
though.
Ten out of the water.
Right. Right. But it's also like I do think that one thing Big Ten does very, very well is offensive line.
Sure.
You know, and I do think that like
State.
also Ohio State in general. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. You know, like I mean, Jalen Hurts obviously having a lot of success. And Tua, although Tua, I think is, I mean, his receivers are so friggin' good, man. Waddle and Hill are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then yeah, Mac Jones, you know, he struggled more this year. He had a bit of a sophomore slump. But I do see what you're saying. But I still think like, you know, that's why Alabama quarterback struggled so long, and that's why Ohio State quarterback struggled so long. Is it's just like the NFL, like you're not getting. I mean, I guess it's hard to include Alabama in there because Alabama does have NFL speed all the time, but Ohio State doesn't always play at like an NFL speed.
Sure.
So I guess I think that has something to do with it. But also, I don't know, man. I'm not a scout yet.
Yeah.
I'd love to be. Not yet. So who's going to win the Super Bowl next year, Evan? Way too early prediction.
Yeah, this is not sanctioned gambling advice, but I will say that I threw a couple bucks on futures bets on DraftKings. DraftKings, please sponsor Elijah's podcast. Thank you so much.
That'd be cool. Or FanDuel. Either way, I'm not picky.
Sure. We don't discriminate here. All sports gambling is welcomed.
Absolutely.
I did take a long shot bet on the Jags.
Okay, I like it. I respect it.
I think that
Lawrence, I think, is going to be a top 5 quarterback next year.
I agree. I think they bring back all of their weapons. They're adding Calvin Ridley. I think the defense will be stronger, and it was already pretty good. I think that they're not going to need an 8-game win streak in order to get into the playoffs. I think there's
a lot to build on. They have a lot to build on in Jacksonville and Duval.
Is that really where they are?
I think it's Duval, right? Isn't that what it's called? Duval? Oh, yeah, no, they always say Duval. But yeah, no, I'm just like, yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm probably going to end up picking the Chiefs when the time comes because I've learned to not bet. Also, don't they have they have some picks this year because
the Chiefs,
the Tyreek Hill trade.
Yeah.
That's
also part of the remarkability of this championship for the Chiefs is they traded their second or third, depending on who you ask, most valuable player. They were supposed to be rebuilding, and then they won.
Yeah. No, this was supposed to be a rebuild year for the Chiefs. Kadarius Toney scores a touchdown. He was scrubbed off the Giants, scores a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Sky Moore, rookie, fucked up week 3 on a muff punt, scores a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And I think Toney also had that amazing punt return.
Yeah.
Valdez-Scantling.
Longest in NFL history during a Super Bowl.
Scrubbed off the Packers. Yeah, longest punt return. Valdez-Scantling scrubbed off the Packers. I mean, he basically just got a workout during the Super Bowl, but the fact, and I mean, Juju also a little bit scrubbed off the Saints, the Steelers rather, for his injury. It's just Mahomes made it work with one amazing weapon in Kelsey, and he's an elite Hall of Fame tight end. There's no way around that. But other than that, you know, he was forced to be methodical, and people thought he couldn't do it, and he did it. He was amazing. And really, I guess, just if I'm gonna put a bow on this podcast real quick, it's I'm not bitter about the Bears and Mahomes because I do think Justin Fields is going to be a great quarterback. I still believe that. I think he will be maybe eventually the best in the NFC. I could see him being the number 1 quarterback in the NFC, if not next year, but the year after. Sure. I absolutely see that. No one touches Mahomes, though. I think at this point, Mahomes He's going to be voted the number one player in the NFL by his peers in the top 100. He is just transcendent from anyone else I've ever seen play the position. And this is coming from someone who watched Rodgers in his prime terrorize my team for a very long time. I don't think
long time.
that, like, my whole life, basically, or my whole football watching life, that's for sure. And I can't believe we passed on him in the 2005 draft. I still resent that day. But yeah, no,
in the NFC, I think is a good take. That, like, I mean, if you look at the top quarterbacks right now, they're besides Hurts, all AFC: Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lawrence, Herbert, and then you got Hurts, and who?
I mean, Dak, Cousins. Honestly, my take is Jared Goff.
Jared Goff is not the second best quarterback in the NFC.
But who else? Who would it be?
Look, and I like Jared Goff. This is a kid from Berkeley, which I love the city. I like when Jared Goff was traded from the Rams to the Lions is the exact same time frame in which I moved from Southern California to the suburbs of Detroit and Ypsilanti, Michigan. Like, Jared Goff and I are forever tied.
You followed Mr. Goff. I get it.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
I said you followed Mr. Goff. I get it.
Oh, that is not what you said. I thought you said like you like followed him Goff, or like I thought you were making.
Oh, right. I thought I said yeah. You thought I was making a pun, right? No, I'm just saying. No, I mean, no, I'm the same way. Like the Chargers, the Chargers followed me to LA. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so breaking down the NFC, it's not this. It could be Kyler. I think Kyler is better than Jared Goff as an overall player.
I don't know, man. Kyler, I still think he's too small. I'm sorry. I still think Kyler Murray, I want him to be the second baseman on the Cubs so badly, but like I just don't.
Never too late.
Yeah, never too late, right? No, I just don't like. I don't know. I've never been a huge Kyler fan. I hope he makes me eat crow because, like, I mean, look, he does do some things really, really well.
I think Stafford's objectively better than Goff. I think we can agree.
Sure, but I mean, will he heal? Like, he's got a bad spine and a bad arm at this point. I don't know if he's going to recover.
He's an ad for life alert at this point.
I think this year, it's fair to say that Jared Goff was no, Cousins had a good statistical season, but Goff was probably top 3 in the NFC this year. I don't know what the ranking is.
This year, that's not a terrible take. I don't think it's reflective of his talent overall, but I think statistically this season, based on injuries, yes, sure.
All I'm saying is Jared Goff, he was developmental coming out of college, but he was a number 1 pick for a reason. And I think like this year, I know he helped take the Rams to the Super Bowl in 2018, got a little exposed that game. I do think this year we saw a lot of growth from him with Dan Campbell. And that's why I say, yeah, like I
that
mean,
team is going to be a sneaky.
I don't think they're sneaky anymore.
No, I know, but like I think they could challenge the Eagles' reign for the NFC next year. Can you imagine a Chiefs-Lions Super Bowl? I feel like that would make that.
You know what? I can't forget my man Geno Smith though. Chiefs-Lions would be hilarious. But I can't forget my man Geno Smith. You know, he was a great.
He deserved comeback player of the year.
I
know you don't like that take.
He's not coming back. He's not coming back for anything. He's arriving.
But I hear that. But coming back doesn't just mean coming back from like it doesn't necessarily mean that you were good, you dipped, and then you come back. He came back from his 12 previous years of mediocrity.
I guess. I still think it's a stretch. I still think it should be like an injury, like if you're injured thing. And he was never injured. He was just not very good at football.
Even though that's become a common association, that's not like to the idea of the rule. I think
look, I probably won't die on this hill because it's like I see what you're saying. You know,
the solution to both of us here is add another award category for like
most improved player.
That I think like best response, like perseverance award for response to injury, a comeback player award for like reshooting their career, as well as a most improved player. I don't think the NFL, like you and I love baseball. Look at Gold Gloves and like the NFL
so many.
Needs more awards.
You know what? Sure, why not? Like, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Like,
Not
I
hurting
I, I
anyone.
like when people get recognized. I
Yeah.
also think, I mean, I mean, I also loved the Pro Bowl. By the way, it's kind of unrelated. It was a lot of
I
fun.
agree. I think that would be something to talk about in the future. I like what they did. I do.
I
I
think the
think
Pro Bowl. My one gripe is I wish it was the week after the Super Bowl still,
yes.
because I want to see Mahomes play some flag football. Are you kidding?
You
Sounds
either need to
sick.
put it at the halfway point like every other sport,
Like every other sport
or you put
does
it
it that
after the
way.
Super Bowl. The
Yeah.
week before, why? Why?
Like, why not just have a universal bye week in the middle of the season where every team has the same bye week, and then you could send them off to Hawaii to do the Pro Bowl games or whatever, and it's just flag football. Like, it'll be more like conditioning for them than anything else, and then just carry on the rest of the season. Like, it makes too much sense to not
There
do
was
something
no
like
reason for Tyler Huntley to play in the AFC. Like, I'm sorry.
that. At least bring me Kenny Pickett, man. Like, I'm not a Pickett guy.
Oh God, I don't know if that's a better take.
Well, who else would it have been in the AFC at that point? Because Lawrence couldn't do it. Wait, no, Lawrence could do it. Lawrence was there. Carr was there. Mahomes couldn't have done it. Burrow wouldn't do it. Josh Allen wouldn't do it. Herbert couldn't do it.
I think that
Lamar couldn't do it.
I remember having this conversation
Jacoby
with
Brissett would have been better.
God, that still makes me uncomfortable, but yes.
Yeah, right? Like, it's weird to think about.
I mean, Russ had a better year than freaking Tyler Huntley. Like,
can you imagine? Look, I love Russ. I think he's going to be good.
I think he's going to have a great year.
I think Sean Payton is a brilliant hire by John Elway, but like,
I don't like that he gave up a pick. But
after this past season, it's like you could not have put Russ in the Pro Bowl. I know he was better than Huntley, but like, he's just like, whoo, man, he was like, just like, he was such a meme this year. At this point, like, it would have been weird. Derek Carr balled out at the Pro Bowl, by the way.
That was it. Derek Carr should have been over Tyler Huntley.
No, he was in it. He was in the Pro Bowl.
Oh God, that's
no, he balled out during the Pro Bowl.
Carr, Lawrence.
Well, really, it should happen either after the Super Bowl or in the middle of the season when we get Mahomes. I want to see Mahomes play. Like, I want to see him do all these crazy challenges.
Also, why are we calling it the Pro Bowl? Just call it the All-Star game, like everyone else.
Yeah, the Pro Bowl is a little weird.
It almost delegitimizes it, like makes the NFL less popular, which, believe me, they have plenty of room to get less popular. They're already dominating every other major American sport.
Right. But I know what you're saying. I feel like it's like, it definitely, it's not great for the brand image. I think calling it like the NFL All-Star game, sure. I guess bowl is a very unique football thing, but like the All-Star Bowl, sure.
I mean, I guess Super Bowl, yeah.
Right. But like, fair. But no, All-Star game, sure. Anything like that, it's just
we
like
don't even call it the
Pro Bowl, unless you're doing like a bowling activity, which would be fun. But like,
can you imagine how upset the Professional Bowling Association is that they can't call their championship like the Super Bowl? I would be salty if I was a bowler.
Oh my God, I'd be like, it's right there, but can't do it, man. Can't do it.
It's kind of in the same way, putting a little bow on this. It's the same way that the National Speech and Debate Association had to change their name in 2016 because for so long we were the National Forensics League, but
NFL
calling us the NFL made everyone confused.
This is the NFL for not for long.
Yeah, right.
Get it? Because the acronym.
What the hell is even that?
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's yeah, I remember being. I was, so I could tell people I was in the NFL. It's true. I was in the NFL. I participated in the NFL. Who do you think you are? I am. All right. Well, with that, Evan, it's been great having you on as always, man.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. We had a good amount of viewers this time. It was nice. Be sure to follow Chicago Clubhouse Network on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. Follow me at eZalonki on Twitter. You can follow Evan Feldman at.
I think I go by Evan R. Feldman on Twitter.
Evan R. Feldman. The R is for.
There's nothing good. Respectful.
The R is for
Evan Respectful Feldman.
Evan Respectful. Evan Really Cool Feldman. And really cool is one word. So on behalf of Evan Feldman, I am Elijah Zelonki, and as always, you can tell me how stupid I am.
I think I'm full of crap. I think I have to be just like some idiot who's full of crap. Please show up in the comments and tell me